The wind cut across the open Wyoming plains like a warning, sharp enough to sting, loud enough to drown out a man's doubts if he listened closely. But Ethan Cole had lived through storms far louder than the wind. He had lost a father, buried a sister, worked 3 jobs to keep himself breathing when dreams tried their hardest to die. Yet even he felt the weight of the moment as he stepped onto the gritty dirt outside the county courthouse the morning of the auction, clutching the folded letter from his late father, the final thing the man had ever left him besides memories that hurt too much to touch. When the auctioneer's gavel struck and the crowd erupted in surprise, Ethan didn't smile, didn't cheer, didn't even breathe. He just stared toward the horizon where the old Harper Ranch waited, broken, abandoned, and rusting into the earth. He had no way of knowing that winning that land would drag him into a storm far bigger than grief. A storm with money, power, and people who believed they could crush anyone who dared to stand in their way. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that prove ordinary people can rise again, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. Your support helps this channel grow and reach more hearts. Ethan drove for hours through long stretches of silence, watching the dusty road unfold like a path to his own redemption. The Harper Ranch wasn't pretty, wasn't welcoming, and wasn't easy. The fence lines sagged, the barn doors hung crooked, and the house leaned like it had grown tired of waiting for someone to come home. But as Ethan stepped onto the land, something stirred in him. Maybe it was the memory of riding with his father across plains not so different from this. Maybe it was the echo of the words in that letter, telling him to rebuild, to seek peace, to start again. Or maybe it was the simple miracle of owning a piece of earth big enough to bury pain in and grow a future from. He spent the first 2 days clearing brush, fixing a water pump, patching a roof that moaned every time he climbed it. He slept on an old mattress, cooked canned beans over a camping stove, and welcomed every ache the work gave him. Because for the first time in years, the pain was building something instead of destroying him. On the 3rd morning, the ranch woke him before dawn with the kind of silence only wide land can hold. He stepped outside, breathed the cold air, and felt pride. But pride didn't last long, because he noticed something strange, dust rising on the far side of the ridge, too early for hunters, too steady for cattle. Then came the low rumble. The kind that didn't sound like trucks. The kind that vibrated through dirt and bone. By the time Ethan reached the pasture gate, the helicopter was already descending, slicing the sky with polished metal blades that gleamed like teeth. It settled near the corral, sending dust swirling into choking clouds. Men in suits stepped out, suits so clean and perfect they looked wrong beneath an open sky. Their smiles were practiced, their eyes sharp, and their briefcase heavier than it looked. In that moment Ethan realized something he had never considered. He had bought a ranch. But somewhere beneath this land, deep, hidden, untouched, was something far more valuable. And someone wanted it badly enough to arrive within days. The men didn't shout, didn't threaten. They simply laid out a number on a sheet of paper. A number Ethan had never seen in real life. Enough to pay off every debt his father had ever carried. Enough to buy comfort. Enough to tempt the broken pieces of a man who had been hungry for years. But the air felt wrong. Their eagerness too polished. Their smiles too controlled. Ethan felt a familiar instinct rise, the same one that warned him during his sister's illness, during his father's decline, during every moment in life when something glittered too brightly to be honest. He didn't sign. Not that day. Not with questions burning in his mind and suspicion coiling in his gut. The company returned the next morning with a bigger offer. Then again that afternoon with an even bigger one. They came with geological surveys he never authorized, with drone photos he never granted permission for, with legal documents too thick for any normal person to understand. And still Ethan refused. Something in him knew this ranch was more than money. It was a message from his father. A chance to heal. A place meant for rebuilding, not selling. The men didn't like that answer. Their smiles tightened. Their voices lowered. Their visits became more frequent, more urgent, more insistent. Trucks appeared on the ridge, watching him. One night someone left tire tracks by his barn that weren't his. Another night he heard a drone buzzing over his roof like an angry mechanical hornet. He was alone, underfunded, exhausted, and facing a machine that swallowed people for breakfast. But then something shifted. Ethan began to talk to the locals, old ranchers, retired geologists, a schoolteacher who grew up near the Harper place. He learned that rumors had floated for decades about something lying deep beneath this land. Something big. Something companies whispered about but never moved on because they couldn't secure ownership. The previous owner had refused to sell despite crippling debt. Ethan understood why. The land meant more than the money. It held history, legacy, identity. And now it held Ethan's future too. The company tried new tactics, friendly ones, threatening ones, legal ones that kept him up at night reading through papers he barely understood. They told him he would lose everything when the courts sided with them. They told him he would drown in legal fees. They told him that standing up to them was pointless. But Ethan had stood in hospital rooms and watched the people he loved die. There was no threat in the world bigger than that. No fear greater. No loss deeper. The company didn't scare him. Because the worst had already happened to him long before they arrived. Slowly, through sleepless nights and long days working the land, Ethan began to feel something surprising, a sense of strength he thought he had lost. When he fixed fence posts, he felt his father beside him. When he cleared brush, he remembered the dreams he once buried. When he watched the sunset paint the sky in colors too beautiful to name, he felt something heal inside him. The ranch wasn't just land. It was a lifeline. The final blow came one late afternoon when he returned from town and found another envelope taped to his door. This one wasn't a threat. It was an ultimatum. A deadline. A number higher than anything they had offered before, life-changing money. The kind that would solve every problem and leave him with enough to live comfortably for the rest of his days. Anyone else would have taken it. Anyone else would have signed instantly. Ethan stood there for a long time, staring at the horizon, searching himself, searching the memories of his father and sister, searching the weight of everything he had lost and everything he still wanted to rebuild. And he realized something deeply, painfully true. Money may patch holes in a roof. But it can't patch the holes in a heart. He didn't choose the ranch because it was profitable. He chose it because it was the first thing in years that felt right. It was the first place where loneliness didn't crush him, where silence didn't suffocate him, where the world didn't feel like it was collapsing under his feet. Selling it meant selling the only place that had given him hope after years of darkness. So he didn't sell. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. The company backed off, not because they wanted to, but because they discovered Ethan had uncovered enough evidence of their unauthorized surveys to file a case against them. Locals rallied behind him. Lawyers offered help. Media attention grew. The company wasn't invincible after all. And Ethan had found a strength he never knew he had. A strength forged from loss, built on resilience, and anchored in a piece of land that had stitched a broken man back together. In the end, he kept the ranch. Not because it was easy. Not because he won. But because it healed him. Because it reminded him that life doesn't always give second chances, but when it does, you fight for them with everything you have.